Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Ninjago video here on the channel. My name is TannerFishies. In today's video, we are going to be discussing one of the more interesting comments that were made at the Ninjago Comic-Con panel, and of course this information comes courtesy of the Brick Fan over on Twitter, who was actually in attendance at the event and was live tweeting as it was going on. I've already made quite a few videos discussing what exactly was revealed during the panel itself, but one comment that was made said the following: "There's a fine line to walk in terms of how to move forward without ignoring the older stuff for Ninjago, seeing what they want to revisit and what to not show ever again." These comments were made by Ninjago staff members present at the panel itself. Most importantly, Ninjago series head writers Doc Wyatt and Kevin Burke. So what exactly does this mean? Well, essentially, with Dragons Rising being more or less a soft reboot of the Ninjago series, one of the main goals is to make it stand apart from the previous Ninjago series. Ninjago Dragons Rising is in the same continuity as the previous Ninjago series. It's more or less just a sequel series. But with that being said, it is still its own thing, and it needs its own identity. Therefore, there's a fine line to walk in terms of how to move forward without ignoring the older stuff for Ninjago. That part was to be expected. What wasn't expected was the comment that they made where they're looking to see what they want to revisit and what they don't want to show ever again. What exactly exists in the older Ninjago series that Dragons Rising wants to ignore entirely? Well, we don't know for sure, but based on the first 10 episodes of Ninjago Dragons Rising Part 1, and considering other aspects like the singular identity of Ninjago Dragons Rising, as well as fan backlash following Ninjago Crystallized, I think we can make some assumptions regarding what Dragons Rising will ignore. The first one is Lloyd's Oni form, and also Lloyd's Oni and Dragon heritage. To me, it was very weird that in Ninjago Dragons Rising Part 1, not once did any of the dragons acknowledge that Lloyd was part dragon. And it's not like they didn't have any opportunities either. The matriarch dragon from Ninjago Dragons Rising Episode 2 could have easily sensed that Lloyd was part dragon when she was powering him up with dragon power. And maybe she did, but that was never acknowledged, that was never referenced. She makes no effort to acknowledge Lloyd's dragon heritage and instead just powers him up, much like she would any other elemental master. And coming off the back of Ninjago Crystallized, Lloyd's heritage was kind of put into question, with the Oni form especially. A large majority of Ninjago Crystallized was dedicated to showing that Lloyd did indeed have an Oni form, much like his father Garmadon. Lloyd used Oni power little by little as the season went on, but following the climax of Ninjago Crystallized, the Oni form itself was only on screen for roughly 20 or so seconds. And to a lot of Ninjago fans, including myself, that just felt way too short of a time frame, especially for something as major as an Oni form for Lloyd. It kind of felt like Ninjago Crystallized itself failed to remember that Lloyd had an Oni form, and with Ninjago Dragons Rising not acknowledging the dragon or the Oni heritage that Lloyd possesses, I doubt that we will ever see any of those mentioned ever again. Like I said, Dragons Rising Part 1 had many opportunities to recognize Lloyd's dragon heritage. The matriarch dragon in Episode 2 and the source dragon in Episode 10, neither of which acknowledged that Lloyd was part dragon, so I doubt that Dragons Rising will acknowledge it ever again. Those aspects of Lloyd's heritage will probably not be retconned though. He probably still is part dragon and part Oni in Ninjago Dragons Rising, but I doubt that will be acknowledged in the series itself. Another thing from Ninjago Crystallized that Ninjago probably will not acknowledge ever again is Harumi herself. And that is for one major reason: the fan backlash regarding Harumi in Ninjago Crystallized. Now, I personally don't agree and have never agreed with this, but a lot of Ninjago fans did not like how they handled Harumi in Ninjago Crystallized, especially regarding her redemption. In fact, after Ninjago Crystallized wrapped up last year, there was a huge controversy surrounding how the series acknowledged Harumi and how it treated the relationship between Harumi and Lloyd himself, with some Ninjago fans going as far as to say that Ninjago was glorifying abuse. Again, I don't agree with this. I think that's far too extreme of a label to give to something like Ninjago, of all things. But I can understand why some Ninjago fans resent Harumi following Crystallized and why they resent Ninjago. At the same time though, there are several Ninjago fans, myself included, who would love to see Harumi come back in Ninjago Dragons Rising in some way, shape, or form, but I feel like Ninjago will probably never acknowledge Harumi anymore, simply because of the controversy that happened in Ninjago Crystallized with Harumi and Lloyd's relationship. Part 1 did not acknowledge Harumi's existence, but then again, a lot of Ninjago characters went unnoticed in Part 1. In a similar manner, I doubt that Ninjago Dragons Rising will ever acknowledge the Overlord. The Overlord was the primary villain of Ninjago's first saga from 2011 to 2022, appearing as the villain in multiple seasons and appearing most recently again in Ninjago Crystallized. And to me, that felt like the conclusion to his arc, the conclusion to his story. The Overlord himself, in terms of Ninjago lore, should be able to appear every so often as long as the conflict in Ninjago brews. However, with Ninjago Dragons Rising being the start of a new saga, it would be very strange to have the Overlord be the big bad again. If anything, Dragons Rising will have its own Overlord-style villain, its own villain that could be there for multiple seasons and constantly looming in the background. I'm not sure who that character will be, what that character will be all about, obviously, but I feel like Dragons Rising, since it is its own series, it will have its own Overlord-style villain. The Overlord in the context of Ninjago's older series being the main villain, that made sense for that saga, but now, since we are on a new show, a new chapter for the Ninjago series, it's time for a new big bad guy. I'm a big fan of the Overlord. I'm thankful that he appeared again before Ninjago wrapped up its original saga, but now it's time for something new and something fresh. Something else that Ninjago will probably do away with is the concept of dragons in Ninjago. And I don't mean that Ninjago Dragons Rising won't have dragons, because, come on, they totally will. The series is literally called Dragons Rising. What I mean is that the structure of hierarchy regarding the dragons in Dragons Rising will be vastly different than what we saw before in the original Ninjago series. In the original Ninjago series, we had a couple of different classes of dragons, with Firstborn being at the top. We had other dragons who possessed elemental powers, and we had elemental dragons made up of the ninjas' elements themselves. In Dragons Rising, I do not expect elemental dragons to return, because that would just make no sense, and Ninjago has been done with those for quite some time, but they will be restructuring the hierarchy of dragons themselves. In fact, Part 1 already proved this, with the Source Dragons being introduced as the most powerful dragon type of all of them. Not even Firstborn is a Source Dragon, and that's been confirmed. So Ninjago Dragons Rising, while not completely rewriting everything that we know about dragons, they are not following the same rules of the previous Ninjago series. And even though Ninjago Dragons Rising might be forgetting certain things about Ninjago's past, it doesn't mean that they don't respect Ninjago's past and where the series has come from. Because they certainly do respect it. Ninjago Dragons Rising has been very respectful so far. Sure, they're definitely leaving some things out that we as Ninjago fans recognize should probably be there, but again, that's in the name of Dragons Rising understanding itself and accepting its own identity, its own place among the Ninjago catalog. I hardly think it's a bad thing, and I totally accept as a longtime Ninjago fan that Dragons Rising would take liberties and make changes like this. And with that being said, guys, that'll pretty much wrap it up for my thoughts here. Thank you so much for watching. I simply wanted to discuss a few things that Ninjago Dragons Rising might get rid of, and again, I could be correct in these predictions, I could not be correct, only time will tell. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below discussing what you thought of the video itself, and what things from Ninjago's past would you love to see Dragons Rising include, and what do you think they should completely get rid of, if anything. If you guys enjoyed this one, feel free to like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Peace.